Jersey City has long existed beside something larger across the river, often overlooked and underestimated. Yet its own history runs just as deep. Long before bridges, tunnels, and glass towers reshaped the skyline, this land was defined by open fields, tidal wetlands, wooden docks, and slow-moving ferries. The Hudson River was not a boundary, but a lifeline. It carried goods, people, and ideas, quietly shaping a settlement that would grow in importance long before it gained national recognition. By the 18th century, Jersey City was beginning its gradual transition from scattered farmland into a strategically positioned waterfront community. In this AI reconstruction, we return to that earlier world through historic maps, period engravings, and written records to visualize a place still forming its identity. If you enjoy detailed explorations of historic cities like this, consider subscribing and leave a comment with suggestions for what location, era, or landmark you would like to see next. By the early to mid-1700s, Jersey City was no longer untouched marshland. Generations of quiet human activity had already altered the shoreline. Dikes, footpaths, ferry slips, and simple piers slowly reshaped the edge of the Hudson. This reconstructed panorama reflects a settlement at a crucial moment where geography began to dictate destiny. Positioned directly across from New York, Jersey City became an essential connector between inland routes and Atlantic trade. Farm goods, timber, and raw materials moved toward the river, while manufactured items and supplies flowed back inland. Though modest in appearance, the settlement's role within regional commerce was steadily expanding. This view focuses on Parlor Hook, long before it was fully absorbed into the urban fabric. In the early 18th century, the landscape remained heavily influenced by nature. Sand ridges rose above tidal flats and salt marshes stretched westward, flooding seasonally with the rise and fall of the Hudson. Narrow creeks cut through the lowlands, shaping both settlement patterns and transportation. Parlor Hook's importance, however, reached back even further. In 1638, the land was sold by the Dutch West India Company to Abraham Isaacson Plank, marking one of the earliest documented land transactions in the region. For decades afterward, it remained agricultural land, passing quietly between families while maintaining its value due to river access. As the 18th century progressed, Jersey City began to expand outward from isolated farms toward more organized development. Though still loosely structured, early roads formed natural routes between river landings and inland properties. Parlor Hook's position along the Hudson made it especially valuable for ferry crossings, small trade landings, and communication with Manhattan. Even before formal urban planning, the logic of geography guided growth. The riverfront became the most active zone, while farmland and residences spread inland. By the mid to late 1700s, Jersey City had entered a subtle but significant phase of change. The settlement was no longer purely rural, yet it had not reached an industrial stage. Large homes stood along dirt roads, often surrounded by open land. Livestock moved freely through areas that would later become dense streets. Nearby farms remained active, supplying both local residents and markets across the river. Pressure from New York City increasingly influenced daily life. Ferry services became more regular, and waterfront activity intensified. Merchants, craftsmen, and laborers began settling closer to the river, drawn by opportunity and access. During much of the 1700s, wealthier individuals maintained country-style homes here, while conducting business in Manhattan, reinforcing Jersey City's role as both a working landscape and a residential retreat. One of the most recognizable early landmarks in Lower Jersey City was Edge's Windmill, standing near what is now Montgomery and Green Street. Built on a long pier extending into the Hudson, the mill rose as an octagonal stone tower powered entirely by wind. Modeled after a mill owned by the Edge family in England, its components were shipped across the Atlantic and carefully assembled after Isaac Edge settled in the area. The windmill served as both a functional structure and a visual symbol of early industry. Originally equipped with canvas sails, it later underwent repairs and modifications after storm damage, highlighting the challenges of maintaining infrastructure along an exposed waterfront. This structure also reflects the early civic life of Jersey City. Education and governance developed slowly but deliberately. One of the earliest school buildings at Parlor Hook was established in the early 1700s, at a time when the population was still small and tightly connected. Land for the building was donated by local associates, while construction relied heavily on community support. Positioned near what would later become St. Matthew's Church, the building served multiple purposes. It functioned as a school, a meeting hall, and a shared space for civic and religious gatherings. Limited resources forced early residents to combine education, governance, and community life under one roof. Community effort made these structures possible. Residents contributed materials and labor, hauling stone, clay, sand, and lime from nearby sources. Repairs documented later in the century demonstrate how continuously the site was used. Educational institutions expanded over time, evolving alongside the settlement itself. Even as buildings were replaced or modified, elements of earlier construction were often reused, preserving physical links to Jersey City's formative years. Seen from the water, Jersey City in the late 18th century presents a working river settlement rather than a city. Small sailing vessels, ferries, and trade boats cross the Hudson at regular intervals. The shoreline is lined with modest docks, warehouses, and storage sheds supporting local commerce. Buildings remain low and widely spaced, shaped by practical needs rather than grand design. From this perspective, Jersey City's identity is inseparable from the river. The Hudson defines its economy, its movement, and its connection to the wider world. Between the early and late 1700s, Jersey City changed steadily in both scale and character. Separate farms and small settlements gradually became interconnected, allowing coordinated growth of roads, ferry routes, and waterfront facilities. Population increased slowly but consistently. Trade expanded. Agriculture remained important, but commerce and transportation began to dominate daily life. By the end of the 18th century, Jersey City was no longer a quiet agricultural outpost. It had become an organized, strategically important settlement, tightly linked to regional trade networks and transatlantic movement. Though still far from the industrial city it would later become, the foundations were firmly in place, shaped by geography, community effort, and constant movement across the Hudson River.